The stars were silent in the void of space as Admiral Zixthara stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Dawn. His 4 eyes scanned the tactical display, showing the positions of his Third Fleet ships. 27 vessels of the Galactic Empire patrolled this sector of space, each one a masterpiece of Calarian engineering, with smooth curves and gleaming hulls that reflected starlight like mirrors. Zixthara had served the Empire for 40 standard years, rising through the ranks by maintaining order in the outer territories. His blue-scaled skin bore the ritual scars of a veteran commander, and his crest feathers displayed the deep purple that marked him as nobility among his people. The Calarians had been the backbone of the Empire's military for over 3 centuries, ever since they had joined the great alliance that brought peace and order to the galaxy. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations, monitoring sensors and communications. Lieutenant Veltar, a young Calarian with bright green feathers, looked up from his console with confusion written across his reptilian features. "Admiral, we have detected an unknown vessel approaching from grid section 749. Zixthara's head turned sharply. "Unknown vessel? Run it through the database immediately." "Already done, sir." "No match found in any known ship classifications. The vessel appears to be of primitive construction, but it's quite large, approximately 800 meters in length." The Admiral moved to the main display screen. A grainy image appeared showing a dark, blocky shape moving through space. Unlike the elegant curves of Empire ships, this vessel looked crude and angular, with what appeared to be heavy armor plating covering its hull. Strange protrusions jutted out at various points, and the whole thing looked more like a flying fortress than a proper starship. "Where did it come from?" Zixthara demanded. "Tracking back its trajectory, sir. It appears to have originated from the recently catalogued human system, the one we designated as Sector 771. Zixthara's crest feathers flattened against his skull. He remembered the report about humans. A primitive species confined to a single world, barely having achieved faster than light travel. The Empire's survey teams had classified them as a minor civilization of no strategic importance. They were supposed to be centuries behind galactic standard technology. "Contact Fleet Command," the Admiral ordered. "Request immediate data update on human capabilities." While his communications officer worked, Zixthara studied the approaching vessel. It moved steadily toward his fleet's position, showing no signs of evasive maneuvers or aggressive intent. The ship's design bothered him. Every civilized species in the galaxy had learned to build ships with energy-efficient curves and lightweight materials. This human vessel looked like it had been built to ram through asteroids dot far away in the human ship. Captain Jake Miller stood in the command center of the UES Victory. Unlike the alien vessels tracking his approach, the Victory's bridge was cramped and functional. Banks of screens and control panels lined the walls, and the crew worked in close quarters with the efficiency born of long training. Miller was a veteran of Earth's Space Navy, having served on patrol ships in the outer system for 15 years. Before being selected to command humanity's first deep space exploration vessel, his brown hair was starting to show gray at the temples, and his weathered face bore the lines of someone who had spent years watching the empty void between worlds. "Range to the alien fleet?" he asked his navigator. 2 million kilometers in closing, Captain," replied Lieutenant Commander Lisa Hayes. She was the ship's executive officer, a sharp-minded woman with blonde hair pulled back in regulation style. Her blue eyes focused on the tactical display, showing the formation of alien ships ahead. "They're not moving to intercept," observed Chief Engineer Danny Brooks from his station. The bearded man had designed many of the Victory's systems himself, and he understood every bolt and wire in the ship better than anyone else aboard. "Could be they're just curious about us." Captain Miller nodded. Open a channel on standard. Diplomatic frequencies. Let's introduce ourselves properly. Communications Officer Ben Parker, a young man fresh from the academy, worked his controls with nervous energy. Channel open, sir. Transmitting on all known galactic standard frequencies. This is Captain Jake Miller of the United Earthship Victory. We come in peace, seeking diplomatic contact with representatives of the Galactic Empire. We request permission to approach and establish formal communications. The message transmitted across space, carrying humanity's first official greeting to the wider galaxy. Miller felt the weight of history in that moment. Everything they did here would set the tone for humanity's future. Relationship with alien civilizations. Back on the Crimson Dawn, Lieutenant Veltar looked up with surprise. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel. They identify themselves as humans from United Earth, requesting diplomatic contact. Zexthara's eyes narrowed. The survey reports had said humans were barely capable of interplanetary travel. Yet here was one of their ships in deep space, apparently equipped with faster-than-light drive and galactic standard communications equipment. Something was very wrong with the intelligence reports. What is their stated purpose? They claim to be on a diplomatic mission, sir, requesting permission to approach for formal contact. The Admiral studied the tactical display. One human ship against 27 Empire vessels. Even if the intelligence reports were completely wrong about human capabilities, the numbers were overwhelmingly in his favor. Still, procedure demanded caution when dealing with unknown factors. Signal the fleet to assume defensive formation around the human vessel. We'll allow them to approach, but I want guns trained on them at all times. The Empire ships moved with practiced precision, their sleek hulls cutting through space as they positioned themselves around the approaching human vessel. Energy weapons powered up, ready to disable the primitive ship if it showed any hostile intent. Aboard the Victory, Tactical Officer Amy Carter watched the alien ships take position around them. Captain, they're surrounding us. 27 ships. Total. All with weapons powered and aimed in our direction. Miller frowned. That's quite a welcoming committee for a diplomatic mission. Any sign of hostile action? Not yet, sir. But they could light us up in seconds if they wanted to. Engineer Brooks studied his displays. Their ships are definitely more advanced than ours in some ways. Look at those hull designs. They're optimized for energy efficiency and speed. But I'm not reading any heavy armor. Looks like they rely on shields and maneuverability for protection. Commander Hayes moved closer to the captain. Sir, recommend we maintain course, but be ready for evasive action. We came here to make friends, but we should be prepared if things go wrong. Miller nodded. The Victory had been built for exploration. But Earth's military planners knew that first contact situations could turn dangerous quickly. The ship carried enough firepower to defend itself, though Miller hoped they wouldn't need to use it. Continue approach at current speed. Maintain open communication channels and keep trying to establish dialogue. The two forces continued their careful dance through space. The Empire fleet held position while the human battleship approached. Steadily, neither side fully understanding what they were dealing with. Admiral Zexthara waited for updated intelligence reports that might explain how a supposedly primitive species had managed to build a ship capable of deep space travel. The distance close to 1 million kilometers. Then 500,000. The human ship showed no signs of slowing or changing course, and its captain continued broadcasting peaceful intentions. But Zexthara had not maintained order in the outer territories by trusting unknown factors. Signal the human vessel, he commanded. Tell them to stop their approach and prepare for inspection. We need to verify their intentions and capabilities before allowing them to proceed. The message crossed space to the Victory, where communications. Officer Parker relayed it to Captain Miller. Sir, they're ordering us to stop and submit to inspection. They want to board our ship. Miller's jaw tightened. Allowing aliens to inspect humanity's most advanced warship would reveal every detail of Earth's military capabilities. That kind of intelligence could be used against humanity if relations soured in the future. Send reply. We appreciate their caution, but we must respectfully decline inspection. We're on a peaceful diplomatic mission and pose no threat to their vessels or territory. When this message reached Admiral Zexthara, his crest feathers bristled with anger. No minor species had ever refused a direct order from the Empire. The audacity of these humans was beyond belief. They refuse inspection? He asked, making sure he had heard correctly. Yes, sir. They claim diplomatic immunity and peaceful intent. Zexthara made his decision. Fire a warning shot across their bow. Show them we're serious about Empire authority in this sector. A warning shot from the Crimson Dawn streaked through space as a brilliant beam of concentrated energy. The plasma bolt, designed to vaporize armor plating and disable enemy systems, struck the Victory's forward hull with the force of a small nuclear explosion. The alien weapon created a flash of light visible across the entire battlefield as superheated gases expanded around the impact point. Aboard the Victory, the crew felt a slight vibration through the deck plating. Captain Miller looked up from his command chair as the ship's systems automatically compensated for the energy discharge. Damage report. Chief Engineer Danny Brooks checked his instruments with growing amazement. Sir, that was a direct hit from what appears to be a high-energy plasma weapon. Impact on forward armor section 12. Damage assessment shows minor scoring of outer plating only. Hull integrity remains at 98%. The bridge crew exchanged glances. They had expected alien weapons to be more advanced than anything Earth possessed, but the Empire's supposedly superior technology had barely scratched their ship's armor. Commander Lisa Hayes studied the tactical display. That was definitely meant as a warning shot, Captain. But if their weapons can't penetrate our hull, they might have made a serious miscalculation. Miller frowned as he considered the implications. The Victory had been built using lessons learned from decades of operating in Earth's harsh solar system. Frequent asteroid impacts, intense radiation, and the constant threat of debris had forced human engineers to develop incredibly tough defensive systems. What seemed like primitive heavy armor to alien observers was actually the result of centuries of refining protection against kinetic and energy threats. Open another channel to their flagship, Miller ordered. Let's try to defuse this situation before it gets worse. On the bridge of the Crimson Dawn, Admiral Zexthara stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The human ship continued its steady approach, apparently unaffected by a weapon that should have disabled any vessel in the galaxy. His weapons officer, a nervous Calarian named Kexfor, looked up from his console with confusion. Admiral, our sensors show the energy discharge struck their hull directly, but there's no sign of system damage or hull breach. The weapon appears to have had minimal effect. Zexthara's 4 eyes fixed on the weapons officer. Minimal effect? That was a full power plasma discharge from our primary batteries. It should have burned through their armor like paper. Yes, sir. But their hull appears to be constructed of extremely dense materials, much heavier than standard galactic shipbuilding practices. Our plasma beam created surface scoring, but failed to penetrate their armor plating. The Admiral moved closer to examine the sensor readings himself. The human ship's construction was unlike anything in the Empire's databases. Where civilized species used lightweight composites and energy-absorbing materials, the humans had built their vessel like a mobile fortress. Layer upon layer of dense metal armor protected their ship's internal systems. Sir, Lieutenant Veltar called from the communication station. The human captain is requesting dialogue. He says they wish to resolve this peacefully. Zexthara. Crest feathers flattened against his skull. A minor species was dictating terms to him after his weapons had failed to disable their ship. The situation was becoming embarrassing, and worse, word of this encounter would spread throughout the fleet. Tell the human captain that his ship will submit to inspection or face the consequences. We have 27 vessels to their one. They cannot possibly resist our combined firepower. The message crossed space to the Victory, where Captain Miller received it with growing concern. The aliens seemed determined to escalate the situation, despite humanity's peaceful intentions. He turned to his tactical officer. Amy, what's your assessment of their fleet capabilities? Lieutenant Commander Amy Carter had been studying the alien ships since first contact. Her analysis painted a disturbing picture of the tactical situation. Sir, their vessels appear to be built for speed and energy efficiency. Lightweight construction optimized for their plasma-based weapons. But I'm detecting a potential weakness in their defensive systems. Explain. Their shields appear designed to deflect energy weapons, sir. But from what I can see, they have minimal armor protection underneath. It's like they've never faced an opponent who used kinetic weapons. Chief Engineer Brooks nodded. In agreement. Makes sense from their perspective. If everyone in the galaxy uses energy weapons, why build heavy armor? But we developed our technology in a completely different environment. Miller understood the implications immediately. Humanity had never abandoned kinetic weapons because space around Earth was filled with natural projectiles in the form of asteroids and debris. Human military doctrine emphasized the devastating effectiveness of solid matter traveling at extreme velocities. Sir, Communications Officer Ben Parker interrupted. The alien admiral is becoming more aggressive in his demands. He's threatening to open fire with his entire fleet if we don't comply. Miller made his decision. Send this message. We cannot allow inspection of our vessel for security reasons. However, we remain committed to peaceful dialogue and suggest a neutral meeting location where both sides can discuss terms without weapons trained on each other. When Admiral Zexthara received this response, his anger finally overcame his caution. No primitive species had ever dictated terms to the Galactic Empire. The humans needed to learn their place in the galactic hierarchy, and apparently words were not sufficient to teach that lesson. All ships. This is Admiral Zexthara. The human vessel has refused direct orders and shows contempt for Empire authority. We will demonstrate the consequences of defying Imperial power. All vessels, target the human ship and prepare for coordinated bombardment. Throughout the Empire fleet, weapon systems came online as 27 warships prepared to destroy. A single human vessel. Plasma cannons charged to full power while targeting computers locked onto the Victory's position. The combined firepower represented enough destructive force to level a small city. Aboard the Victory, alarms began sounding as sensors detected the massive energy buildup from the alien fleet. Tactical Officer Carter's voice carried a note of urgency as she reported the developing threat. Captain, all enemy vessels are charging weapons. Estimated time to firing solution is 30 seconds. Recommend immediate evasive action. Miller looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These were good people who had volunteered for a mission of peace and exploration. They deserved better than to die because of alien pride and miscommunication. But the Victory was Earth's most advanced warship, and she had not been sent into deep space defenseless. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for combat. Seal all blast doors and activate emergency systems. We came here in peace, but will defend ourselves if necessary. Commander Hayes moved to the weapons control station. Sir, should I return? Fire if they attack? Wait for my order. Maybe they're just trying to intimidate us. The seconds ticked by as both fleets prepared for battle. Admiral Zexthara watched his tactical display show weapon readiness across his entire fleet. 27 ships against one primitive vessel. The outcome was predetermined, but the human captain's arrogance needed to be answered with overwhelming force. All ships commence firing. Disable the human vessel. Space erupted in a storm of energy as the Empire fleet opened fire simultaneously. Dozens of plasma beams converged on the Victory's position, creating a spectacular light show visible for millions of kilometers. The concentrated firepower represented the peak of galactic military technology, enough destructive force to obliterate any known vessel. The plasma storm engulfed the Victory completely, surrounding the human ship in a sphere of superheated gas and energy. For several seconds, the alien barrage continued as Admiral Zexthara's fleet poured their fury into the target. Surely no ship could survive such punishment. When the energy discharges finally faded, both fleets waited to see the results of the bombardment. Admiral Zexthara expected to find debris and wreckage where the human ship had been. Instead, his sensors showed the Victory still intact, still moving on its original course. "Report," he demanded. Weapons Officer Kexvar stared at his instruments in amazement. "Sir, the human vessel appears largely undamaged. Their hull integrity remains above 90%. Our combined bombardment has failed to disable their ship." The Admiral's crest feathers went completely flat against his skull. The Empire's finest weapons, fired by 27 warships in perfect coordination, had failed to destroy a single primitive vessel. The implications were staggering. On the Victory's bridge, Captain Miller assessed the damage from the alien attack. The ship had been designed to survive in the most hostile environment humanity knew, the space around Earth's sun, where radiation and debris posed constant threats. The alien energy weapons, powerful as they were, had proven insufficient to penetrate defenses built for much harsher conditions. "Damage report," he called. Chief Engineer Brooks smiled grimly as he read his displays. "Outer armor shows extensive scoring and some ablation, but no penetration. Internal systems are operating normally. They threw everything they had at us, Captain, and we're still here." Miller stood from his command chair. The silence on the bridge of the Crimson Dawn was deafening as Admiral Zexthara tried to process what his sensors were telling him. 27 Imperial warships had just fired their most powerful weapons at a single primitive vessel, and that vessel remained completely operational. His weapons officer continued staring at the tactical display as if he could make the readings change by sheer force of will. "Run a full diagnostic on all sensor arrays," Zexthara ordered. "This cannot be accurate." Lieutenant Veltar worked frantically at his station. "Admiral, all sensors check out." The human vessel sustained only superficial damage to their outer hull. Their power signature remains steady, and they're continuing on their original course. The Admiral's 4 eyes focused on the human ship displayed on his main screen. The blocky, primitive-looking vessel showed scorch marks and blackened areas where the plasma beams had struck, but its structure remained intact. Whatever materials these humans used for armor, they were far more effective than anything in the Empire's experience. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from Fleet Command. They're requesting an immediate status report on the human contact." Zexthara's crest feathers bristled. How could he explain to his superiors that an entire fleet had failed to disable a single ship from a species barely capable of spaceflight? His career and reputation hung in the balance. "Tell Fleet Command that we have encountered unexpected resistance. Request immediate tactical analysis of human technology." Meanwhile, aboard the Victory, Captain Miller was making his own difficult decisions. The alien fleet had shown hostile intent and fired first, but he still hoped to avoid a full battle that could doom any chance of peaceful relations between humanity and the galaxy. "Amy, do we have a clear shot on their flagship?" Tactical officer. Amy Carter studied her targeting displays. "Yes, sir. Their lead ship is maintaining position at 600,000 kilometers. Our main guns have a perfect firing solution. Chief Engineer Danny Brooks looked up from his station with concern. Captain, if we fire back, this becomes a real battle. Are we sure we want to escalate things further? Commander Lisa Hayes moved closer to the captain's chair. Sir, they've already escalated by opening fire. If we don't respond, they might think their weapons worked and we're disabled. That could encourage them to board us or demand surrender. Miller nodded grimly. The aliens had already proven they were willing to use force against a peaceful diplomatic mission. Showing weakness now might lead to even worse consequences for humanity. Amy, target their flagship's forward weapons array. Show them we can defend ourselves, but try not to cause unnecessary casualties. Aye, sir. Targeting forward plasma batteries on the enemy flagship. The Victory's main gun turret rotated slowly as massive magnetic coils charged with power. Unlike the energy weapons favored by galactic civilizations, human military technology had evolved along different lines. The ship's primary armament was a railgun capable of accelerating dense projectiles to incredible velocities. Weapon charged and ready, Captain. Fire. The Victory's main gun discharged with a flash of electromagnetic energy as it hurled a tungsten projectile across space at nearly 10% of light speed. The dense metal slug, weighing several tons, crossed the distance to the alien flagship in seconds. Admiral Zeke Thara was studying tactical reports when his ship suddenly lurched violently to one side. Emergency alarms began blaring throughout. The crimson dawned as the crew fought to maintain their footing. The Admiral grabbed a nearby railing as his bridge shook under the impact of something far more powerful than any weapon in his experience. Report, he shouted over the noise of damaged systems. Weapons Officer Kexvor's voice carried a note of panic. Sir, we've been hit by some kind of kinetic projectile. It penetrated our forward shields and armor. Plasma battery stations 7 through 12 are completely destroyed. We have major structural damage to the forward hull. Zexthara stared at his officer in disbelief. Kinetic projectile? What kind of primitive species still uses solid ammunition? Unknown. Sir, but the projectile was traveling at extreme velocity. Our shields were designed to deflect energy weapons, not solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The Admiral moved to examine the damage reports flowing across his screens. The human weapon had punched through his ship's defenses like they didn't exist. A single shot had destroyed 6 weapon systems and left a gaping hole in the Crimson Dawn's forward section. Sir, Lieutenant Veltar called from communications. The other ships in the fleet are requesting orders. Should they continue the attack? Zexthara hesitated. His flagship, the most advanced vessel in the Third Fleet, had just been crippled by a single shot from the primitive human ship. If their weapons could do this much damage with one projectile, what would happen if they fired a full barrage? Hold position. Do not engage unless directly threatened. Aboard the Victory, Captain Miller watched the results of his ship's first shot. The alien flagship was clearly damaged, venting atmosphere and debris from its forward section. He felt no satisfaction in the destruction, only regret that diplomacy had failed so completely. Direct hit on target, sir, Amy Carter reported. Their forward weapons are offline, and they're showing significant structural damage. Any response from the rest of their fleet? Negative, sir. They're maintaining position, but not charging weapons. Engineer Brooks was analyzing sensor data from the engagement. Captain, I think we've surprised them more than we expected. Look at their ship construction. They rely almost entirely on energy shields for protection. Their physical armor is minimal compared to our standards. Commander Hayes studied the tactical display. It makes sense from their perspective. If everyone uses energy weapons, why build heavy armor? But our railguns don't care about energy shields. Miller understood the implications. Humanity had developed its technology in isolation, facing completely different challenges than the galactic civilizations. While the Empire had perfected energy, weapons, and energy defense, humans had continued to refine kinetic weapons simply because they were effective against asteroids and space debris. "Open a channel to all ships in the alien fleet," Miller ordered. "Let's see if we can end this before it gets worse." The transmission from the Victory reached every ship in Admiral Zixthara's fleet simultaneously. Captain Miller's voice carried clearly across the communication channels as he addressed the Imperial forces. "This is Captain Jake Miller of the United Earthship Victory. We came here seeking peaceful contact with your civilization. We did not want this fight, but we will defend ourselves if attacked. We propose an immediate ceasefire and neutral meeting to establish proper diplomatic relations." On the bridge of the Crimson Dawn, Admiral Zixthara listened to the human captain's words while damage control teams worked to repair his ship. The situation had become a complete disaster. His fleet, supposedly the finest in the Empire, had been outfought by a single primitive vessel. "Sir," his tactical officer spoke quietly, "recommend we accept their ceasefire proposal. Our weapons appear ineffective against their armor, while their kinetic weapons can penetrate our shields and hull." The Admiral's pride warred with military reality. Everything he had been taught about galactic warfare assumed that all civilizations used similar technology. The humans had somehow developed along completely different lines, creating weapons and defenses that made Imperial technology obsolete. "Sir," Lieutenant Veltar added urgently, "I'm detecting another ship approaching our position, much larger than the first human vessel." Zixthara turned to the main display as sensors tracked the new arrival. A massive shape was emerging from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. As the distortion field cleared, it revealed a human vessel even larger than the Victory. This new ship dwarfed anything in the Imperial fleet, stretching over 1 kilometer in length. "Identification?" the Admiral asked weakly. "Unknown class, sir, but it's broadcasting human identification codes. Designation U-East Defender." The new arrival moved into formation alongside the Victory, its massive bulk bristling with weapon turrets and armor plating. If a single human battleship could defeat an entire Imperial fleet, what could 2 of them accomplish? Captain Miller's voice came over the communication channel again, this time with reinforcement clearly visible behind his words. "Admiral, I repeat my offer of peaceful dialogue. However, I should mention that the Defender carries enough firepower to eliminate your entire fleet if this situation continues to escalate." Admiral Zixthara looked around his damaged bridge at the faces of his crew. Young Calarians who had entered this battle confident in their technological superiority now stared at displays showing 2 human warships that could destroy them all. "Open a channel to the human captain," he ordered quietly. "Channel open, sir." Zixthara swallowed his pride and spoke words he had never expected to utter. "Captain Miller, this is Admiral Zixthara of the Imperial Third Fleet. We accept your proposal for ceasefire and diplomatic discussion." News of the engagement spread through the galactic communication networks faster than the Empire's leadership could contain it. Admiral Zixthara's request for tactical analysis had triggered automated alerts throughout Imperial space, and now every military commander in the galaxy was demanding details about the human ships that had defeated an entire fleet. On the Imperial capital world of Calaria Prime, Fleet Admiral Korthavel stood in the war room surrounded by holographic displays showing the battle footage. The massive Calarian's crest feathers were rigid with shock as he watched the human projectile punch through the Crimson Dawn's shields and armor like they were made of paper. "Play it again," he ordered. The hologram repeated the sequence showing the Victory's railgun firing and the devastating impact on Admiral Zixthara's flagship. The other officers in the room watched in stunned silence as their most advanced warship was crippled by a single shot from what appeared to be a primitive kinetic weapon. Analysis? Korthovel demanded. Chief Weapons Analyst Dex Mora stepped forward, his blue scales pale with concern. Sir, the human weapon appears to be a magnetic acceleration system firing dense projectiles at approximately 8% of light speed. The kinetic energy transfer is enormous. Why didn't our shield stop it? Our energy barriers are designed to deflect plasma and particle beams, sir. They offer minimal resistance to solid matter, especially at those velocities. It's like trying to stop a bullet with a flashlight beam. Korthovel has 4 eyes fixed on the analyst. Are you telling me that our entire defensive doctrine is useless against these humans? Not useless, sir, but definitely inadequate. Their weapons exploit a fundamental weakness in our shield technology that we never considered because no galactic civilization uses kinetic weapons. The fleet admiral moved to examine tactical projections of human ship designs. The blocky, heavily armored vessels looked primitive compared to Imperial warships, but the battle footage proved that appearances could be deceiving. What about their defenses? Why couldn't our plasma batteries penetrate their armor? The humans appear to use layered physical armor instead of energy shields, sir. Dense materials designed to absorb kinetic impacts and thermal energy. It's an incredibly inefficient approach by our standards, but it's also highly effective against the weapons we've been using. Another officer, Intelligence Director Vex Mora, activated a different holographic display. Sir, I've been analyzing all available data on human society and technology. Their development appears to have followed a completely different path from standard galactic civilizations. Explain. Most species develop energy-based technology early because it's efficient and elegant. But humans evolved on a world with an unusually active star and dense asteroid field. They've spent centuries dealing with constant bombardment from space debris and intense radiation. Korthovel began to understand the implications. So they developed heavy armor and kinetic weapons because those were the most effective solutions to their environmental challenges. Exactly, sir. While we were perfecting energy shields and plasma weapons, they were building ships that could survive asteroid impacts and solar storms. When our technologies met in combat, our elegant solutions proved inadequate against their brutal efficiency. The fleet admirals studied the tactical displays showing human ship movements. The Victory and Defender maintained position near Admiral Zexthara's damaged fleet, but their mere presence had completely altered the strategic balance in that sector. How many more ships do they have? Unknown, sir. Our intelligence on human military capabilities was clearly inadequate. For all we know, they could have dozens of these battleships. In the meeting room aboard the Victory, Captain Miller sat across from Admiral Zexthara and several other Imperial officers. The human captain had agreed to come aboard the alien flagship for face-to-face negotiations, though both sides maintained their weapons at ready status. The Calarian admiral looked different up close than he had on the yacht communication screens. His reptilian features bore obvious signs of stress, and his normally proud posture seemed diminished by recent events. The ritual scars on his scaled skin marked him as a veteran warrior, but those same scars now seemed like reminders of battles fought with obsolete tactics. Captain Miller, Zexthara began, I must admit that our first contact has not proceeded as either of us expected. Miller nodded diplomatically. Admiral, we came here hoping to establish peaceful relations with your civilization. We regret that misunderstandings led to violence. Misunderstandings, the Admiral repeated. Is that what you call the complete failure of our weapons against your ship? Commander Lisa Hayes, who had accompanied Miller to the meeting, spoke carefully. Admiral, our species developed different solutions to similar problems. Neither approach is inherently superior, just adapted to different circumstances. One of the other Imperial officers, a female Calarian with silver crest feathers, leaned forward. "Commander, our analysis suggests your kinetic weapons could devastate any ship in the Imperial fleet. How do we know you won't use this advantage? To conquer our territory?" Miller understood her concern. Humanity had just demonstrated overwhelming military superiority over the galaxy's dominant power. Fear was a natural response, but it could also lead to even worse conflicts. "Because conquest was never our goal," he replied. "Earth sent us to explore and make friends, not to build an empire. We have our own worlds to develop and our own challenges to face." Admiral Zexthara studied the human captain carefully. "Yet, you came armed with weapons capable of destroying our ships. We came prepared to defend ourselves if necessary. Your own actions proved that was a wise precaution." The meeting continued for several hours as both sides worked to establish basic protocols for future contact. Trust would take time to build, but the immediate crisis was beginning to diffuse as each group learned more about the other's intentions and capabilities. Meanwhile, throughout Imperial space, military commanders were frantically reassessing their defensive strategies. The human demonstration had revealed critical weaknesses in galactic military doctrine that needed immediate attention. On dozens of worlds, weapons researchers began emergency projects to develop kinetic defense systems. If one primitive species could build such effective weapons, others might follow suit. The galaxy's military balance had shifted overnight, and the Empire needed to adapt quickly or risk losing its position as the dominant power. Captain Miller concluded the negotiations by establishing a neutral meeting zone where both governments could send representatives for formal diplomatic talks. The immediate military crisis was over, but both sides understood that this first contact would have consequences far beyond a single battle dot as the human delegation prepared to return to their ship. Admiral Zexthara made a final comment that would prove prophetic. "Captain, I believe your arrival has changed everything. The galaxy will never be the same." Miller paused at the airlock entrance. "Change isn't always bad, Admiral. Sometimes it's exactly what everyone needs." Back on the Victory's bridge, Chief Engineer Danny Brooks was analyzing the tactical data from their engagement with the Imperial fleet. His findings painted a clear picture of the technological gap between human and galactic military systems. "Captain," he reported when Miller returned, "I've been studying their ship designs and weapon capabilities. We have a significant advantage in any direct confrontation." "How significant?" "Our armor can stop anything they can throw at us, while our railguns can penetrate their defenses from extreme range. A single human battleship could probably defeat 10 of their warships without taking serious damage." Miller absorbed this information with mixed feelings. Military superiority might protect humanity, but it could also make the galaxy see Earth as a threat to be eliminated. "Danny, I want you to prepare a technical briefing for our diplomats. If we're going to coexist with these civilizations, they need to understand that we're not planning to use our advantages against them." "Aye, sir. But Captain, word of this battle is probably spreading throughout their empire. Other species are going to want to test their weapons against our armor." Commander Hayes joined the conversation. "Or they might try to develop similar weapons to level the playing field." Miller looked out at the Imperial fleet still holding position around them. Admiral Zexthara's ships showed obvious battle damage, but they maintained discipline and readiness despite their technological disadvantage. "Then we'd better make sure our diplomats succeed in establishing peaceful relations. Because if this turns into an arms race, everyone loses." 3 months after the first battle, representatives from Earth and the Galactic Empire met on the neutral world of Haven Station to negotiate what would become known as the Terra Accords. The space station orbited a lifeless world and unclaimed territory chosen specifically because neither side held any strategic advantage there. Dr. Patricia Wells, Earth's chief xenosociologist, walked through the station's main corridor alongside Captain Miller and a small diplomatic team. The human delegation had spent weeks preparing for these negotiations, knowing that the future relationship between humanity and the galaxy depended on the outcome. The station itself was a marvel of galactic engineering, with flowing curves and transparent aluminum walls that offered spectacular views of the surrounding star field. It had been built by the Empire as a gesture of good faith, demonstrating their commitment to peaceful resolution, despite the military humiliation they had suffered. "Remember," Dr. Wells said as they approached the conference chamber, "we're not here to dominate or dictate terms. We want to establish mutual respect and cooperation." Miller nodded. The past 3 months had brought significant changes to the political landscape. News of humanity's military capabilities had spread throughout the galaxy, causing panic in some sectors and opportunistic planning in others. Several minor civilizations had attempted to contact Earth directly, hoping to gain human protection from Imperial authority. The conference chamber was filled with representatives from dozens of galactic civilizations. Admiral Zexthar sat at the Imperial delegation's table, his damaged flagship having been repaired and returned to service. The Calarian officer had become an unexpected advocate for human Imperial cooperation, arguing that partnership was preferable to prolonged conflict. Fleet Admiral Korthavel led the Imperial delegation, his massive frame and imposing presence making him the natural spokesperson for the Empire's interests. Despite the military defeat his forces had suffered, he maintained the dignity and authority that had made him one of the galaxy's most respected military leaders. "Honored delegates," Korthavel began as the session opened, "we gather today to address the new reality that humanity's arrival has created. The Empire acknowledges that our first contact was mishandled, leading to unnecessary conflict and misunderstanding." Dr. Wells stood to respond for the human delegation. "The people of Earth appreciate the Empire's willingness to engage in peaceful dialogue. We hope to establish relationships based on mutual benefit rather than domination by any single power." The negotiations proceeded carefully over several days as both sides worked through complex issues of territory, trade, and military cooperation. The fundamental challenge was creating a framework that acknowledged humanity's military advantages while preserving the dignity and authority of established galactic powers. One of the most difficult discussions centered on technology sharing. Many galactic civilizations wanted access to human kinetic weapons and armor technology, while Earth was reluctant to spread military innovations that could destabilize the entire galaxy. "The concern," explained Commander Lisa Hayes during a closed session, "is that widespread adoption of kinetic weapons could lead to an arms race that makes everyone less secure." Admiral Zexthara, who had become something of an expert on human military doctrine, offered a different perspective. "Perhaps the real issue is that our civilizations have become too dependent on a single type of technology. Diversity in defensive and offensive capabilities might actually increase stability." The breakthrough came when Dr. Wells proposed a graduated technology exchange program. Humanity would share defensive innovations that could protect against kinetic weapons, while keeping the most advanced defensive systems restricted to proven allies. "The goal," she explained to the assembled delegates, "should be to raise everyone's defensive capabilities rather than simply adding more destructive weapons to the galaxy." This approach addressed the Empire's primary concern about vulnerability, while maintaining Earth's strategic advantages. More importantly, it demonstrated that humanity was willing to share the benefits of their technology rather than hoarding them for military dominance. Captain Miller contributed to the discussions by describing humanity's exploration goals and territorial needs. Earth wanted access to uninhabited systems for colonization and resource extraction, but had no interest in conquering existing civilizations or challenging established borders. "We have entire solar systems to develop within our own space," he told the assembly. "Our expansion will be focused on empty regions where we won't conflict with existing populations." The final agreement established several key principles that would govern human-galactic relations. Earth was recognized as a major power with full diplomatic status and territorial rights. In exchange, humanity agreed to respect existing borders and participate in galactic peacekeeping efforts. Most importantly, the Terra Accords created a joint defense treaty between Earth and the Empire. Human ships would provide heavy assault capabilities for major threats, while Imperial forces would handle routine peacekeeping and patrol duties. This partnership, Fleet Admiral Korthval announced at the signing ceremony, combines the best of both our civilizations: imperial experience and organization with human technological innovation. The ceremony itself was broadcast throughout galactic space, marking humanity's official entry into the wider community of stars. Captain Miller signed the documents on behalf of Earth, while Admiral Zexthara witnessed for the Empire. As the negotiations concluded, many delegates privately acknowledged that the galaxy had been fundamentally changed. The Empire's unchallenged dominance was over, replaced by a more complex balance of power that included humanity as a major player. Dr. Wells found herself in conversation with several alien diplomats who were curious about human society and culture. The military demonstration had gotten everyone's attention, but lasting relationships would be built on understanding rather than fear. "Your species is fascinating," commented Ambassador Velanara, a tall Calarian female with academic credentials. "You developed such effective technology while remaining confined to a single star system." "Necessity is often the best teacher," Wells replied. "We had to solve difficult problems with limited resources, which forced us to be creative." The return journey to Earth took several weeks, giving the human delegation time to process what they had accomplished. The Terra Accords represented more than just a peace treaty. They were humanity's invitation to join the galactic community as equals rather than subjects. Captain Miller stood on the Victory's Bridge as Earth came into view, its blue oceans and white clouds a welcome sight after months in alien space. The planet looked the same as when they had left, but everything had changed. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe. "Communications from Earth Fleet Command," reported Ben Parker. "They're requesting immediate debriefing on the negotiations." "Tell them we'll be ready to report in 2 hours," Miller replied. And, "Ben, add this: mission accomplished." Behind them, the UES Defender maintained formation as both ships approached their home system. Earth's shipyards were already working on new vessels designed with lessons learned from the galactic encounter. Future human ships would be even more formidable, but they would also carry diplomats and scientists alongside their weapons. Admiral Zexthara's prediction had proven correct. The galaxy would never be the same. The Empire's period of unchallenged dominance was over, replaced by a new era where multiple powers would need to cooperate to maintain peace and stability. In the years that followed, human technology would spread gradually throughout galactic civilization. Kinetic weapons and heavy armor became standard components of military doctrine, while human-designed defensive systems protected worlds throughout the galaxy. But perhaps more importantly, humanity's approach to problem-solving influenced how galactic civilizations thought about technology and development. The idea that different solutions could be equally valid encouraged innovation and creativity throughout the Empire. Earth had joined the galaxy not as conquerors but as partners, bringing new perspectives and capabilities that benefited everyone. The first contact crisis that had nearly led to war instead became the foundation for a stronger, more diverse galactic community. Captain Miller's final log entry from the mission captured the significance of what they had achieved. We came to the stars seeking friends and found a galaxy ready for change. Humanity's greatest contribution may not be our weapons or armor, but our willingness to try different approaches to old problems. The Victory and Defender entered Earth orbit to find a hero's welcome waiting for them. But for Miller and his crew, the real satisfaction came from knowing that they had opened the door to a future where humans and aliens could work together among the stars.